There were a lot of big moments in gaming this past year, so we put together a list of some of the bigger ones. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 holy shit gaming moments of 2020. Just a quick disclaimer, this video does contain spoilers, so keep that in mind before I move forward. Starting off at number 10 is Doom Eternal's BFG 10,000. Doom Eternal is about as metal as any video game can get. At any given time, you can confuse what you're looking at with a heavy metal album cover, and that's true for pretty much the entire game. There is one moment though that is so over the top ridiculous it has to be spotlighted here. The time the Doom guy blew up Mars. So we all know the BFG 9000, right? The big effing gun. Shoots an energy ball with crazy Doom physics that don't make any sense. You know, that one. Well, enter the BFG 10,000. A gigantic gun meant as a defensive turret built on the surface of Phobos. See, Doom Guy's got a problem. He's got to get to the core of Mars for reasons, and he has to do it fast. This enormous gun is just sitting out there collecting dust, so simple enough, just blast Mars with it. The absolute audacity of the whole scene. The Doom Guy just gives almost no shit whatsoever. The rest of the level sees you travel downward towards Mars by jumping between floating chunks on the planet's surface. It's one of the craziest levels I've ever seen in an FPS. And it's a game that is loaded with ridiculous moments. And number 9 is the Final Fantasy VII Remake's ending. Like, for us, this is one of the biggest surprises of 2020. And not just the ending, but that the remake actually ended up being really good. Not just good, great even. Playing through the game, seeing some of the iconic events of Final Fantasy VII play out in glorious HD is great. But one thing we didn't expect was how it would all blow up at the end. See, throughout the game, you see these weird ghost things pop up every once in a while. They were never present in the original game, so you're kind of getting clues that things aren't going to play out in exactly the same way. At the end, you find out that they're the forces of fate. Basically, they're trying to make it so that things happen the same way they did in the original Final Fantasy VII. But at the end, instead of just escaping Midgar and fighting a sort of uneventful robot boss, the game ends with the party battling it out with this giant, thing. I guess it's a personification of fate. It's clearly the same force as the ghost from earlier, and when you destroy it, it means that basically anything goes now. So, at the end of the first part of the Final Fantasy VII remake, the characters literally blow up fate and make it so that everything in the future can play out completely differently than they did in the original. So, now we kind of don't know what's going to happen in the Final Fantasy VII remake, and there are more episodes to come. Most people assume that things are probably going to stick fairly close to the original, but who knows? Maybe Aerith lives instead of getting killed by Sephiroth. Now, we don't know. Things are already different. Biggs is still alive. He died in the original game. And in the biggest twist, it looks like Zack is still alive too. That last thing can have huge ramifications on the story going forward, but right now all we can do is speculate on the future. That said, that there are things to speculate about is kind of a real holy shit moment. At number 8 is Cyberpunk 2077, The Heist. At the end of Act 1, we saw V and Jackie infiltrate Konpeki Plaza to steal something called the Relic. The whole mission is basically a long series of holy shit moments that pretty much are the actual plot to Cyberpunk 2077. Like, so much happens in this one. The guy you're stealing from, Yorinobu, has a confrontation with his father and ends up murdering him. Your hacker T-Bug gets their brain fried. Then Special Forces soldiers swarm the area that you have to slide down the building to escape. There's a lot more too, because Jackie dies. Dex betrays you and dumps your body in a garbage dump. Then a guy rescues you and kills Dex. But then there's a car chase where you're attacked by a bunch of sword arm assassins. And there is even more, where you relive the memories of Johnny Silverhand, after which he tries to take over your body and kill you. To say this was an eventful series of missions is an understatement. As a way to kick off the story properly, it's really all out. They went all out. It's impressive, if nothing else. At number 7 is Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, The Big Twist. I think we were all expecting some mind-bending twist to happen in Cold War. Weird twists are kind of a staple of the sub-series at this point. The actual twist maybe didn't even surprise anybody, but how it played out certainly did. Near the end of the game, you and your secret agent allies discover the true goal of the wily Soviet agent Perseus. He wants to detonate American nukes hidden in European countries and blame the US for it. They need the dude's location and quick, so their only recourse is to take desperate measures, and this is when stuff gets very weird. They drug you, and you have a Vietnam flashback similar to the one earlier in the game, but this time Adler is narrating your actions. After a while, you find yourself at a crossroad, and the voiceover tells you what direction to go in, just like the Stanley Parable, honestly. That comparison isn't too far off, actually. This whole sequence can go basically along with what the narrator's telling you to do, or you can fight him. If he says go left, you can go right, and different things happen depending on what you do. At the end, you see yourself battling an army of Adlers or wandering an infinitely looping hallway, and again, stuff continues to get weird. That's when the truth comes out. You are not who you think you are. You're actually a Soviet agent the CIA brainwashed into thinking was an ally so they could get intel out of you. The twist itself is kind of expected, but how it plays out is just massive holy shit moment. And number 6 is Assassin's Creed Valhalla's Asgard. At a certain point in the new Assassin's Creed game, you're told that Valka the Seer has arrived at Ravensthorpe, and if you build her a hut, you get the opportunity to see her visions. But that's kind of underselling what actually happens. Instead of some Far Cry style psychedelic missions, like I assumed, you're instead transported to an entirely new area with its own series of quests, Asgard, which is, by the way, incredible looking. It is a surprising change of pace from the much more down-to-earth setting of England and Norway, which you spend most of the game in. And it's not just that you're in Asgard, the mythical home of the Norse gods. You are Odin, like king of the gods. Many other mythical creatures are there as well, and the whole thing is just shocking in how fleshed out it all is. For what amounts to a side story in an already massive game, the place is just crazy impressive. There's nearly enough there for the whole game by itself, and I definitely said holy shit the first time I saw it. And number 5 is Mortal Kombat 11 Shang Tsung's Victory, the Aftermath DLC, which came out back in March. It added a bunch of new characters, but probably the most significant addition was a 2 to 3 hour campaign that continued the story to Mortal Kombat 11. Things play out pretty much how you'd expect, too. There are some loose ends to clean up after all the dimension hopping, and Shang Tsung claims to have a solution. Of course, Shang Tsung betraying the good guys really isn't a surprise. I mean, look at him. Yeah, of course he's going to betray everyone. But how it plays out is still pretty brutal. Shang Tsung teams up with Shao Kahn and Sindel, who basically run roughshod over all the good guys. The Cage family gets captured. Kung Lao gets thrown into the Sea of Blood, which, remember, basically dooms him to eternal torment. And Kotal just straight up gets his head chopped off. Liu Kang gets the worst of it, having his bones broken by Khan's hammer before getting killed. For a series about brutal violence, the actual story mode's been fairly light and fun, so this whole scene comes off as really dark change of pace. At the end, you're given a choice whether to side with Shang Tsung or not, and if you do, things get even darker, with Shang Tsung basically having unlimited power and taking over every known dimension. Like, seriously, who didn't see Shang Tsung's betrayal coming? But how it played out still made us say, holy shit. At number 4, Yakuza Like a Dragon, the giant robot vacuum cleaner boss. Let me say that a second time. The giant robot vacuum cleaner boss. This is as ridiculous as it sounds. It comes out of nowhere, too. After you give 1 million yen to this goofy inventor guy, he shows you this monstrosity, which is literally just a giant version of one of those little cleaner robots, and it goes haywire. The cutscene before the fight is probably one of the most ludicrous things I've ever seen in my life. It sucks up the inventor, it sucks up a family walking by, everyone is yelling, and the whole thing just has to be seen to be believed. And when you actually fight it, it's got a flamethrower. Why? I don't know. Yakuza Like a Dragon is itself a Yakuza game that is a JRPG, and it is filled with silly crap. But this whole thing just takes it to the next level. And number 3 is Bug Snacks, the secret of Bug Snacks. Like, there was always something a little creepy about Bug Snacks, the game where Muppets eat bugs that look like food and then their limbs transform into those foods for some reason. The whole game has this weirdly wholesome veneer, but you could tell something sinister was going on. I don't think anybody really expected this, though. Your goal in the game is to find this missing explorer named Elizabeth Megafig, which is a silly name. When you finally find her at the end of the game, she's transformed into this giant monster, having been consumed by the bug snacks and basically acting as their queen. She tells the players the true nature of the bugs, and suddenly everything goes crazy and all the snacks attack. So at the end of the game, you're defending the town from swarms of angry bugs who can kill the residents of the town if you're not careful about defending them. Everyone left manages to escape, but there's one more ridiculous secret post-credits where a Metal Gear Solid-esque phone conversation can be heard. It is implied there is a grand conspiracy revolving around the bug snacks, because why not? The game is totally winking at the players about how ridiculous it all is, but still, things get way crazier than you'd expect. At number 2 is The Last of Us 2, Joel's death. Listen, we cannot talk about holy shit moments in gaming without bringing this up. The interesting thing about it is I think most people saw it coming before release. Remember all the discussion about Joel's ghost after one of the first trailers aired for the game? Like, kind of deep down, I think we all knew it was coming. Regardless, it's still a truly shocking moment, if only because of how it plays out. It is a sickening sequence that is hard to watch. Like, it's not sentimental at all. Joel doesn't get any final words or a noble last stand. He's just dispatched, and that's the end of it. The Last of Us series is known for its brutality, and for good reason. This is definitely one of the most shocking scenes of the year. At number 1 is HalfLife Alyx, the G-Man changing history. The ending of this game is just something else. Like, just thinking about it is making my head spin, honestly, so bear with me here. HalfLife Alyx is set 5 years before the events of Half-Life 2 and is, you know, a VR game, so most of us expected it to just be an interesting side game that wouldn't have major effects on the main story, but we were wrong. So the main thing is you're trying to open this vault. There's something in there that the Combine don't want out, so of course you want to get it. But what ends up being the shocker is that it is the G-Man, and he offers Alyx a choice. At the end of Half-Life 2 Episode 2, Alyx's dad, Eli Vance, was killed by a Combine advisor. He says that if Alyx works for him, he'll save Eli. Remember, in the timeline, Eli dies 5 years in the future from the events of Alyx, so it's basically G-Man altering the future. Doing this makes it so Alyx works for the G-Man now, though, and post-credits, we see an aftermath of the final scene from Episode 2, with Eli giving Gordon his crowbar and vowing to go after Alyx, who I guess has disappeared. So this man, the G-Man, didn't change everything that happened, just this one thing. So I guess that Alyx got teleported away in the future? I don't know, it's really confusing. But what we all thought was just a straight up prequel ended up being a sort of sequel in which time got altered. I don't know, it's one of those things that, like, it's really cool, but it's nuts and it's hard to process. But what did you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. The best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to click the notification bell, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.